Well, good morning, Becky. The stimulus payments started showing up in bank accounts over the weekend, and they'll continue to roll out over the next few days. In a letter to staff obtained by CNBC, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen forecasts that the money, along with the rest of that $1.9 trillion, there's been a lot of concern about some of the fees that unbanked households have to pay to access their money. An analysis by the Brookings Institution found that the costs range from about $8 to as much as $195.
Here is an update on the fourth stimulus check for seniors and Social Security benefits. Well, here's the facts. $2,400 is actually going to be sent out to millions of you guys. Lawmakers have proposed new changes to Social Security, and this bill can actually provide many of you guys with much needed relief. As a result, Social Security recipients could get an additional $2,400 a year in benefits if a bill is recently introduced to Congress and wins approval. It's something that seniors would no doubt welcome as surging inflation wipes out annual cost of living increases. The Social Security Expansion Act was introduced again by Peter DeFazio and Bernie Sanders, but according to CBS News, under terms of the bill, anyone who is currently under Social Security or who turned 62 will receive an extra $200 a month, actually $200 stimulus check every single month. The bill is timely for a couple of reasons. First, it follows a Social Security Administration announcement earlier this month that Americans will stop receiving their full retirement benefits in about 13 years. It also comes during a period of high inflation, and it's had a bad impact on seniors living on fixed income, many of whom rely solely on Social Security payments to just survive. So, the COLA is 5.9%, and since then, inflation has pushed well above 8%. Social Security recipients today are actually losing money. The new bill just aims to ease the financial strain by boosting each recipient's monthly check. The average monthly Social Security check is around $1,700, meaning a $200 increase will represent a 12% boost. Martha Shedden, president of the National NRA, and for Social Security analysis to reporters that many seniors on Social Security, for the majority, rely on this income, so $200 a month is going to help. Tell me, everybody, if you would like a $200 a month, $200 a month stimulus check, because that's 12% more than what you would have got anyways. In addition to boosting the monthly checks, the bill would also provide several changes to the program itself. One would be to base the annual COLA on the CPI index for the elderly, and the other is to actually increase the CPIW. Another change would be adding more funding to the bill by applying the Social Security power tax on all income above $250,000. Earnings above $147,000 are not subject to the tax, but even if the bill is in its current form and doesn't pass, observers expect some kind of change to Social Security, if it happens at all. So now, new census data is showing that more seniors are living in poverty, and a third of older adults actually rely on this. At least half of older adults in the state rely on Social Security to apply for living on more of a fresh government inflation reading in the midterm elections is the most anticipated events in Wall Street. So the U.S. economy added 260,000 jobs last month, another robust hiring figure seen as confirmation to policymakers that it's pretty good in America. The central bank delivered a fourth consecutive interest rate hike and now has 75 basis points clear of the previous time. And with prices still rising sharply, analysts say they expect to see job losses again over again. So as consumers start to curb their spending and the central bank raises the rates, we don't know what's going to happen. But we do know one thing: stimulus is needed.
It doesn't just affect those living in the West, however. As I've said, the effects of drought and wildfires cost our country tens of billions of dollars each year. We all pay a price. Not the price that Morton paid, but we pay a price. To my friends on the other side of the aisle who constantly deride our attempts to address the climate crisis as too expensive, I would remind them that the cost of inaction in the form of more frequent, more severe fires, droughts, and other natural disasters is far greater. From time to time, I quote a former governor of our state, Ted Agnew, who in his inaugural address in 1967 on the east front of the Capitol of Indianapolis, where I was just entering as a new state senator, he said, "The cost of failure far exceeds the price of progress." That's true here. We must not fail, and we must respond effectively. This legislation would help us prevent and fight future wildfires by making investments to support our firefighting response and to protect vulnerable communities from wildfire. This bill, for instance, would establish a minimum basic pay of roughly $20 an hour for our wildland firefighters and ensure they have access to other benefits, such as at least 1 week of mental health leave. Additionally, this legislation will authorize a 10-year national wildfire response plan, building on actions already taken by the Biden administration, and it will expand the role of tribes and conservation corps programs in reducing wildfire risk. This bill, Madam Chair,
a new round of stimulus could be on the way for many Americans, everybody. Now, this new bill could guarantee low-income households with monthly stimulus payments. As long as they qualify, eligible people could receive up to $1,200 in extra relief. Now, this is awesome news. And according to the Washington Post, Democratic and Republican lawmakers have held early discussions about a new round of crisis relief stimulus spending. A bill for a guaranteed income program proposed by progressive Democrats in Congress is calling for ongoing $1,200 monthly stimulus checks for adults, plus $600 for each child in the household. The program, called the Support Act, which was introduced in the U.S. by Minnesota Democratic Representatives Elon Omar and co-sponsored by Representatives Pramila Jayapal and Cori Bush. Omar sent a news release about this bill. For too long, we have prioritized endless growth while millions of people are homeless, hungry, or without health care. The crisis has laid bare these inequalities, and we have the ability to make sure everyone has their needs met. The legislation would set up a $2.5 billion grant fund that would pay for the pilot program. It would pay $1,200 monthly for adults and $600 monthly for each child in the home. Different communities would be involved in the pilot program for the first 5 years, and then the program would become available to everybody who qualifies. According to the proposed legislation, single filing adults with AGI's income of up to $75,000 and jointly filing adults with incomes of up to $150,000, and those filing as head of household with an income of up to $112,000 would be eligible for the maximum amount monthly. Now, a family of 4 or 2 children being younger than age 18 and a yearly income under $150,000 would be eligible for $3,600 a month. Now, the U.S. job market remained tight last month as employers struggled to find people to hire. The Labor Department said that the United States businesses added 390,000 jobs in May as the unemployment rate held steady at 3.6%. Job gains for March and April were revised, down by a total of 22,000 jobs. The demand for labor has also left employers hoping that older workers who left the workforce early in the crisis will come out of retirement, especially after the recent drop in the stock market put a dent in the 401ks. The number of workers ages 55 and older grew last month by 181,000. The labor force also grew by 330,000 workers last month, not keeping up the pace with hiring. In order to attract scarce workers, employers have been offering more flexible schedules, hourly benefits, and higher wages. Average hourly wages in May were 5.2% higher than a year ago, a slight moderation from the month before. But even those bigger paychecks are not keeping pace with rising prices. The Fed is concerned that rising wages could fuel stubbornly high inflation. At 8.3% in May, inflation is already near a 4-decade high, and the central bank has begun raising interest rates aggressively in an effort to regain control over prices. The Fed has raised the rates by half percentage point in early May, and 2 more similar-sized rate hikes are expected in June and July. The former Treasury Secretary is skeptical the Fed can curb inflation without causing a recession and the higher unemployment that comes with it. He said during an interview this week, "I don't think that there's a durable reduction in inflation without a meaningful reduction in wage growth."
Let me start just by